plants touch every part of our lives. From the minute you wake up, you touch a plant. They are all around us all the time, and I think we've completely forgotten that.
Well, very excited today for the podcast. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much.
So we have Michael Desplaines, and he is from Green Room Landscape Architecture, and you guys are doing incredible stuff everywhere. And of course, I connect you, and your personality is just as big and good as the workout in the field. So, got to congratulate you on that.
Thank you so much. As big as the outdoors.
Which says a lot, Maybe we'll start there, Michael. I think there's a lot of directions I want to go with this today, and it's kind of funny. It just so happened that I was in Arcadia. I think I mentioned this to you. I was with the client. They said, we met at the Green Room. We want to hire them. And I'm like, that's awesome. I've heard of them. I haven't worked with them yet. I know they do a phenomenal job. That night I go to a networking event. You're there. Yeah. We meet. And the rest is history. And then, of course, Correct. There's another event a few weeks later we met at. And here we are today. So
it's just to be a part of the design community here. It's so supportive. It's so collaborative. It's truly people making art together, which is, amazing. We build gardens for a living. What an amazing, who doesn't love a garden? Who's not replenished by it? Who's not in awe of it? I mean, have you ever met anyone who walks in the garden and is like, oh, I hate this?
Yeah.
No, right? And say you build beautiful homes. I mean, a home it's the ultimate. It's where you live. It's the singular biggest thing I think that you do, other than maybe raise children if you're a parent. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy what we're allowed to do. Because if people really knew us, Brad, who knows?
Well, what I'll say, Michael, and you touch on this, I will tell you, there is something different when you show up to a house that has amazing curb appeal from landscape, right? You're in the backyard, you're going through it. I mean, you mentioned going through a garden. A lot of us who have maybe been to like botanical gardens and like it's just a site by itself. When you have someone that truly understands landscape architecture and can, integrate that into a home, and you see it, you see homes that have great landscape architecture and others that don't. The inspiration, and I think that's what people miss is, yes, there's a cost to it, but there's a tremendous value that it brings.
Without a doubt. And I always tell people, like, where does your home start? It starts at the curb. Mm-hmm. It starts at the end of the driveway. It starts the envelope is the minute you arrive to the property. And it should be a reflection of you throughout. And it should be also something that welcomes you, envelops you, and nurtures you from the curb. It shouldn't start at the door, because what a waste of all of that outdoor real estate that you have. People get it, I think, especially here in Phoenix, where so much of us live outside so much of the year. Like, we get it. We want to be outside. That's why we live here.
But with that said, Michael, I mean, here's one of the challenges, right? I mean, we understand the sophistication and the value it brings, but you're designing in the desert, right? So there's an artistic side that you have, and you're trying to figure out the technical side and the environment. Phoenix can be
engineers,
very harsh. Yeah, It's very hard.
We've got to deal with water. We've got to deal with grading. We're putting in lighting systems, irrigation systems, drainage systems, living plants, things that are alive. We are installing, and we need to pick the right plant for the right place and give the client the look and feel that they want. It's amazing what my staff do and the layers of technology and engineering that they have to accomplish. It's mind-blowing.
So before I get into just maybe the thought process and design, because I want you to talk about why a client should get you involved, the design team, why, that's a valuable role in the HOAs and stuff. But just at its core, what's unique about this is you have, I'm sure, clients that bring in inspiration. You're going to deal with something that may be a little bit more lush in some areas to desert design in others. How are you consulting clients or the builder or the architect when they may have some inspiration? You're like, hey, this is beautiful, maybe if you're in Massachusetts, or Texas, but it's not going to work here in Phoenix.
Correct. So part of what we do is to educate. Obviously, we want to design in collaboration with the client, right? This is their space. This is their yard. This is their business, because we do commercial as well. Mm-hmm. Or their institution. We do botanical gardens and other cultural institutions, museums. So what is it that you're looking for, number one? Okay. So if they say, well, I want wall-to-wall lawn, and I want an evergreen hedge, of pine bushes, something like that, we'll say that's fabulous. But again, not going to work in the desert because of the harshness of our summer, because the lack of water, or do you realize, what it's going to cost? I met with a homeowner a few weeks ago, corner lot. Her water bill was $2,000 a month, and I thought, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's insane. $24,000 and they're just two people. It's not like they're, bathing and washing and feeding a family of six. And I thought, oh my Lord. So, and we talk about all of that. We talk about the cost and maintenance costs and long-term costs, and educate them about what some other options might be. Now, if they say, well, we really want a lawn because we've got a dog and the dog needs a space to go outside, we have great alternatives. Carapia is a wonderful ground cover that takes a little water, doesn't need a lot. You can cut it. It has a flower. Pollinators love it. So we can also offer design alternatives to what a traditional yard might look like. I'll also tell you, Brad, I think it's just like folks who come to you, right? They know your level and they know your aesthetic. So if they've done their research, they've looked at our website, they've gone to our Instagram, they know what our look is. And that's usually what they want. It's very rare for a client to come to us and say, oh, I don't want any cactus and I want all palm trees and I want a thick lawn. They're not going to see that in our work. Now, we've done palm trees, of course, we've done lawn, but our look is really elevated desert, ecology minded, really bringing the wilderness back into our homes, which is, when you look out the window, you see mountains and wilderness everywhere here. And that's a wonderful thing to bring into your house.
What's interesting is you talked about just the ecology side and, being in a desert. Do you have clients ever looking at you for maybe edible stuff, gardens that they can grow?
Oh, without a doubt. Yes. So we've had clients say, fruit trees are important to us and our family. We're from overseas. Our families love fruit gardening. Can we make sure we have an orchard? Is there a place for us to do a raised bed garden? Can we do edibles in containers? We had somebody who wanted to do a citrus tree in a container. Can you recommend that? Because we do small projects. I joke we do balconies to botanical gardens. We'll do small little courtyards or a small little condo space as well. And we have to be creative there if people want to do edibles. So how do we do them in containers? I'm going to go edible shopping this weekend. The cooler weather's here. It's my first full winter in the desert. I want to see what cool veggies I can grow in a pot in my backyard. So definitely edibles and just wellness in general, like turning back to nature to heal ourselves, I think is become really, really, I hate to say popular. I think it's become really, really important to folks. That wellness is in everything. It's in our homes, it's in our yards, it's in our landscapes, that the earth regenerates us. I mean, Brad, think about it. Plants touch every part of our lives. From the minute you wake up, you touch a plant. Cotton sheets, toilet paper, you go to the kitchen, you're consuming plants or meat that's based on plants. We're wearing plants. I mean, they are all around us all the time. And I think we've completely forgotten that. So reconnecting people to nature through the world of plants is also very important in what we do.
I can see the passion. I mean, it's really important to have that passion for what you do. And,
Thank you.
Because the thing is, Michael, in fairness to you, and maybe speak to just how that design, I would imagine you've done many projects, of course, outside of Arizona, but just Arizona alone. If you're in the Valley, it's very different if you're designing something in PV Arcadia or Gilbert or Mesa as opposed to Scottsdale, right? Desert Mountain.
Correct.
As Flagstaff, and Prescott. I mean, the terrain is so much different, and then you're dealing with HOAs and you're dealing with restrictions. And
every project's different. So, right now we're working on projects in North Dakota, coastal Virginia. We've done South Coast Botanic Garden in LA. That's actually a botanical garden built on an old landfill. I mean, and again, you talk about the different microclimates that we have here in North Scottsdale versus, Tempe, or every site is different. We do site analysis. We analyze every site for the sun and micro conditions. Also, what the building footprint's going to do. We've had a lot of modern architecture now, as lots of glass walls. What does glass do? It reflects light and heat. So we'll put a plant in front of a glass that the sun hits it. It's like a solar ray on that plant all day. And we need to be cognizant of that because the plant will fry. So it's not only geolocation, it's also architectural style. And what's being built can sometimes affect what plants we can use outside.
I love they brought that up, Michael,
Living
because
things, right? They're living creatures.
yeah, and I've seen this. I've seen where you'll have artificial turf that predominantly is very hot in the summer anyways. You're stepping on, it could burn your feet. And
Bakes.
next to glass, it's even warmer and it can deteriorate that product. And, you bring this up, which I think is really interesting is, for us, temperatures can be 115 degrees outside and that window is probably 170, right? If
Easy.
it's a black window. Yeah. And then what it's reflecting, I'm not sure, but
And then think about, you put a plant this close to a 170-degree window,
yeah,
it's going to be 100 what, 50, 140 near that plant.
right.
You're going to have some temperature loss. But think about what does really well in the desert, right? Rocks, cactus, things that are indestructible. We like to landscape with those. We love to use rock, cactus, native plants in our work because they're the ones that are going to last. They're the ones that provide natural beauty. And they're the ones that are going to give you this amazing return on your investment. Because no offense, rose bushes and turf aren't going to do that.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, and for you mentioned you're doing a project in North Dakota, you're doing a botanical garden in Los Angeles. When you're dealing with these different climates, how does that education research, how is your team looking at this from a practical aspect to make sure, a
good question. So in the Dakota project, we wanted to use natives, right? We wanted to use things that were native to the fields, prairies, and mountains of that region. And they weren't commercially available in the quantities that we need. So we actually worked with local experts, seed experts, native plant experts to develop a plant list where we could either source the material or get seed and grow it ourselves. Now, I didn't grow them here in the studio or in the parking lot outside, but we contract grew with growers out there to get enough product. I think in this one project, it's a really spectacular 40-acre sort of master plan for a foundation that's building essentially, I think, a retreat out there. Thousands of plants. I mean, literally the number of numbers in the thousands that we're planting out there. All natives, most grown from seed and contract grown. So we definitely do our research and we work with local experts. And in this case, we needed to create the product. We couldn't buy the plants anywhere. So we had to locate someone who could help us with seed and then help us find somebody who could grow them for us. So it's amazing. It's really bringing ecology back to that site.
You know what I love about that? I think there's two angles here, Michael. Is one, you're trying to resource something that's natural that's going to perform for time, right? Your reputation, your design. The reason people are coming to you is for that reason. And so you're like, okay, well, we can find seed and we can find some farmers. We can have that planted and then we can bring that in. I've seen where, like you and other landscape designers, one of the concerns clients have is, let's be realistic, you're at the tail end of the project in most cases, so the budget can come into play, right? And
we're always the last in the ground and we're the first ones cut.
Yeah, exactly. So your budget,
as builder, by the end of the project, the house is finished. Now everyone's out of the way. We can start planting. That's also when the money is starting to run out, when the cost overruns have happened. And yes, we see our budgets sometimes. I don't want to say often, but we do see our projects cut back. It's the nature of the beast, and it's I think this podcast too is for people in the industry. It's just how it is, right? When you're end of the line, you're probably going to be the one who's on the chopping block first because there's nowhere else to cut, right? Where else are we going to save money? We've already built it. We've already done everything.
And what I love about that, I mean, not that I love that, but what I think is very creative that I know you do and other landscape designers and even landscapers themselves is a lot of our projects are bigger scale. Not all of them, some are, and some may be 2 years of construction, 3 years of construction. And I've seen where they're like, hey, we have two options. We can go, like you mentioned, having fruit trees. We have a lot of clients that love fruit trees. We can plant them on day one, make sure they're watered and maintained throughout the course of construction. So instead of buying maybe a 48-inch box, we're buying a 36-inch or a 24-inch. It's a lot less expensive. Or we're buying, a bunch of 5-gallon plants instead of, 10-gallon or whatever it may be. And so what ends up happening is you can maybe lower the cost and putting in now, let it season and grow over time. Yeah. So that when the clients move in, it's already flourishing as opposed to putting in all these small plants that have been value engineered,
It's one way. I think it's a misperception. I don't say it's a misnomer, but it's a misperception that the easiest way to cut budget is to make the plant smaller. There's some cost savings there, but for the most part, the biggest line item on any landscape architecture project is hardscape.
It is.
Hardscape
Yeah.
is always the biggest one. And unless you're cutting out your driveway or your pool patio, it's hard to cut hardscape too. So, it sadly, it's sometimes the plants that take the axe. But we also like to inform clients too. The bang for the buck is buy the best plant that you can afford. Without a doubt, we always say that.
How does lighting play a role?
Huge. So we do lighting design as well. And I think especially for our environment where we want to be outside, especially when it's hotter and we want to be outside later, you need lighting. And I'm still amazed when I go to a client's house and a gorgeous backyard and I'm like, where's the lights? And they're like, yeah, we don't have any. And I'm like, oh my God. So they're using their iPhone to get out to the grill, and they're in a fabulous, crazy seven-figure house. But don't forget, lighting is 20, 30 years ago, Brad, when you were building your first house, outdoor lighting was not a thing. You had a spotlight,
Right.
you had a floodlight, walkway lights was institutional. We weren't even doing walk lights for residential, if you think about it. So lighting has come so far, so fast, and there's just amazing stuff we can do now.
What do how often are clients aware or need to be educated on the value of lighting?
So if I notice it's not there, I'll say something. I'll say, do you have lighting? And they're like, yeah, we need lighting. And I'm like, of course you do. If you want to use this space at night, especially if you have outdoor kitchen. I mean, pools are always lit.
Yeah.
Everyone put a light inside a pool, but you need some light to get you to the pool. So I always point it out to clients, and they're always the first, obviously, to say, yeah, it's definitely something we need. It's something we're lacking. Or they'll have old school lights that are, half don't work anymore, and you can't buy the replacement fixture, or the patina. The sun is so brutal on our outdoor objects, so sometimes they've not patinaed well. And the other thing that we like to talk about lighting is to make it really simple and really beautiful, because it really is a way to highlight the architecture of the plant specimens as well as the architecture of the home. Outdoor lighting, I think, is huge. I love to drive by and see a beautifully lit home.
Right.
My own house, which I rent, but it's a gorgeous Palo Verde tree in the front and it's uplit. And every time, so right now with daylight, the daylight is getting so dark so early, I'll come home from the gym and I'll see that thing lit up, and it's just it makes my night when I come in and see that.
It's funny. I think a lot of people, unless they're in an industry or they're experienced and they've seen it, they don't recognize it till you see it. And when you see it, you're like, oh, what a difference lighting makes. And that's architecture, exterior, everything.
It's huge. And with the efficiency of lighting now and the voltage systems, they're not pricey.
Not crazy. Yeah.
No, you can run them all the time on very little money.
You brought this up earlier in the conversation. I want to touch on, Michael, because I think something that's really important for you to be successful is to set really clear expectations for your clients, right? And you mentioned something that you're doing is you're looking at not only the cost of integration and installation and the design element, but also what does this look like to maintain? You talk about water usage for a small company, $2,000 a month. What is, to have a landscape company come and properly maintain olive trees or other product that really need a lot of care.
Correct.
And then you're trying to say, okay, we have this amazing design in Arizona. We want to make sure that it's great on day one, but how it looks over time, how are you balancing that expectation just to let the clients know that, yeah, there's also going to be a budget to maintain, this over time to make sure that it looks just as good, if not better, as it comes into season and grows, in the years to come.
Correct. I think a couple things we do is most homeowners understand, because even if they haven't hired a landscape architect before or had their home professionally done on the outside, they've at least had a grass company come and cut the lawn and do the weed whack. We call it mow, blow, and go. They've had mow, blow, and go, so they understand someone has to come here and take care of this. Even my most expert, I've got many clients who are fantastic plant people. They're amateur horticulturists in their own right. It's almost impossible to maintain a home by yourself. If you're a gardener, you need some sort of help. So they understand that. We also work with clients to make sure they understand that what we put in is very low maintenance. That's why we put it in. That's why we use natives. They can thrive and grow, especially in this harsh landscape, without a lot of babysitting. We've got clients who don't. This is the second, third home. They're not there year round. They can't come back to French parterre garden that needs to be trimmed, weekly. And no, that's not what we do because it's not our aesthetic. But yeah, definitely maintenance is a part of it. And we also explain to them too that this design will change as it grows. The light will change, the shadows will change. You'll have ephemeral flowers in the spring that are going to come up and die back if we seed it with wildflower seed. So I think you hit the nail on the head that the education process to the client as far as what they're getting, what it's going to look like, but also what it's going to take in the future to maintain it, especially because, again, it's a living thing.
How do you take into consideration the family dynamic? If they have young kids, if they have, grandkids, if maybe everyone's out and they're empty nesters, how does that play a role in design?
How do we program the space, right?
Yeah.
So client had older home, typical pool hot tub. They're like, we never use the hot tub, get rid of it, blah, blah, blah. Kids are in college, kids are away, college, kids are going to come from college, they want to sit in the hot tub. And sure enough, 3 months into the project, she said, yeah, my son really, he really wants to put it in the hot tub. I'm like, I agree. So it's, how is your current family using it? And then your future family. Okay, your kids are out. They're going to come back. You might have grandkids in a few years or 5 years. Do you really want to put in a new pool in 5 years, or you want to do it now while we're doing everything else? Outdoor kitchens, outdoor dining, family gathering spaces. How athletic are you as a family? A lot of times it's not for the kids, it's for the parents. Pickleball, multi-use sports courts. How can we utilize the yard now for outdoor living that's not just sitting around a fire pit, or not just a back lawn that we can look at or maybe throw the Frisbee on. There's a lot of activity happening now in our yards. And I think that's a good thing. Getting people outside, connecting to nature through gardens, sports, recreation, water, all good things.
Yeah, especially in Arizona. I mean, we have such a unique climate. Yes, it's very hot. I grew up in San Diego, so of course, it took me a year or two to be.
You got 75 degrees year round. So boring.
It is so boring, right?
So boring.
Yeah. I mean, and in fairness, it was actually overcast. I remember all the time growing up, it seemed to always be overcast.
The water's freezing.
Yeah. But I do enjoy, we don't have seasons, but I do enjoy Arizona, especially the winter, because, it's, something where we do see our clients. And you know what? The reality is, if you have a good swimming pool, people are outside in the summer too.
All the time.
Sure, in the winter they're outside.
I eat outside almost every night, even on the hottest summer days. I was still eating outside. If you've got shade and air movement, why not? It's such a beautiful thing to have. I'd hate to be stuck inside year round or most of the year.
Yeah, and you bring up some good points. You mentioned shade, air movement, could be maybe, mist system, other things that are kind of cooling that area, because what we see is we do have a lot of clients have these large indoor-outdoor spaces, right? Essentially, they're increasing the square footage because they have big multi-sliders and, coming out to cover patios and, and I'm sure you're instrumental in just, alleviating that.
And I think too, when you look at the new designs that are coming out or the new, this sort of new aesthetic of, it's not indoor outdoor anymore. It's living.
Yeah, living.
Yes, there are walls we can close and we can encapsulate rooms for HVAC conditioning in the evening if you want. But now it's the great room to the outside, to the outdoor kitchen. I just saw a fabulous design where the outdoor kitchen is very close to the indoor kitchen, and both are spectacular. And, no wall, all the glass is removed. And I'm like, that's so wonderful. I can go, I can be roasting something outside and I can easily get inside. And it's almost like now I have one giant kitchen. It's not two kitchens anymore. It's not indoor outdoor living anymore. It's living.
What do you find the pain points to be as you're collaborating? Of course, you have a great process with the client, but you also have to integrate with the architect and the builder. Where do you see either bottlenecks or pain points?
Well, I'll tell you what the most successful way to do it is, and it eliminates pain points, is when we collaborate early. When an architect, a client, a landscape architect, and the builder are all working together almost from the beginning. It's fantastic, because then we can suggest to the architect just siting. If you shifted this a little bit, you'd have better sunsets. If you, this overhang is going to cause, they want to have I don't know, an area outside that requires full sun for some reason to grow something particular. But the shading from the roof is going to make that. Things like that. Window placements, that's your frame of into the outside. We can change those. And then obviously working with the builder on the installation. That's the biggest thing for us is when are you going to do your work? How do we collaborate? You're putting in our many times the builder is doing our work. It's putting in our hardscape design, our pool design, our outdoor ramada designs. And when the three of us can dance like that, that's the best. Pain points are when we don't communicate and we come in after the fact and we can't remedy a design fix. Like, if they had only thought about moving this or done that and it's too late, that's a pain point. I think another pain point sometimes is if people aren't plant people. Like I grew up as a plant person, worked in botanical gardens, have a degree in horticulture. I know what plants cost and I know their value. A lot of people have no concept on actual cost of plants or the budget, and think they can have a nominal budget to build a really not nominal outdoor product. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where, because let's face it, we all know we've all bought a couch, we've all gone to the store, we've all picked out paint. But if you're not a plant person and you just bought a house and you were happy with the plants, you might not have any concept on what a bush or shrub costs or what a walkway costs. And I think that's for us. A lot of times people are blown away with how much what they want will actually cost.
Yeah, I love I want to come back to, you kind of spoke about solstice and sunsets, but I'll come back to that. But what's really important is you mentioned install. And yeah, if you have a large flat acre lot, or flat lot, that's one thing. But if you're working on a hillside and you want to put in a lot of architectural boulders, you're not going to have access, after the client.
I got to rent a crane. And I think the other thing too is that, let's face it, the homes and the estates that you and I tend to work on they're definitely elevated. And they don't want a bunch of little meatball bushes this size that are from a 5-gallon bucket around their beautiful multi-million-dollar estate, because it's going to look ridiculous and it's going to take years for them to get big or look like anything.
Right.
So we need to source really large, amazing, mature specimens. And most of those we get are rescued from salvage sites. So a Saguaro takes a decade to grow a foot. So there is no nursery in the world that's going to grow and hold something for 40 years until they make a profit on it and then sell it to me because I need a Saguaro this high.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So we have to get them from places where they're going to be knocked down. And we work with plant rescue companies to do that. Same with ironwood trees, same with Palo Verdes. So we're installing some ironwood trees that are 200, 300, 500 years old in some of these properties. And you can imagine when you put that next to a house, the sense of place it gives, the majesty, that's not a 5-gallon meatball bush, right? There's nothing like it. And you also helped rescue something from turning into mulch in 5 minutes.
I love that you bring that up, because something that is unique is we have these protected trees, as you mentioned, Palo Verdes, mesquites, and saguaros. And, as I post content on that, it seems to always do very well because people are fascinated on how we move those. And, the house is going to go here, so we're going to relocate them. And again, this is why you mentioned you have to be early on in the process, because Michael, you can work with us to say, okay, you have this incredible saguaro here that would take 100 years to grow, but it's here. Let's place it here. Now we're going to base the pool or design or great room, master bedroom looking right at this.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. So that's why the earlier that we get involved, especially with the architect and the builder, is so much better a process. The overall project takes it to the next level because everyone is working together from a design, and then a build standpoint to make sure it's perfect.
And something that's really interesting, again, this makes a lot of sense for those that live here, but if you have south-facing, west-facing exposure, not only for your house, if your great room and kitchen sitting there with a ton of glass, how that's going to be miserable to entertain in the summers, or even from a plant perspective, or if they're trying to go out in the backyard and front doors facing north, the south side of the house is in the back, like how you coordinate that to make sure that they're
Correct.
protected.
And where we do, not for every project, because it's also based on scale, size, and budget, like every project. We do sun studies. Where is the sun going to be at what time of day, at also what month of the year, because the sun's always moving, right?
Yeah.
And for exactly that reason. Also, we're not putting the wrong plant in the wrong place. And then we're making sure that the outdoor areas that are going to be scheduled for people, like this is where your pool's going to be, this is where your outdoor kitchen's going to be, there's that the sunlight is optimal for those areas. And we can also plant things that will grow so that when the sun is in the sky at this point, at this time of year, there's something there blocking that. And we can work to help facilitate that, whether it's a tree or a shade structure or whatever. But by doing an actual sun study, we can come up with that.
You mentioned early on that you do a lot of commercial and residential. How do those clients differ from each other?
That's a great question. So without knocking any of our commercial clients, I feel like commercial landscape's the last thing they think about, right? Mm-hmm. They've thought about the building, its intent, how they're going to rent it out, what's the most attractive thing to renters, or if they're a company building it for themselves, how are the employees going to use it? And I think they think about the landscape last, which is sort of sad. And the landscape is usually the parking lot. We do, right? Landscape architects, we do everything on the outside, including parking lots. There's a great quote, Stern, famous architect, New York City based. He did Yale, and I think he did the Bush Library. Robert Stern, famous architect. His famous funny quote is form follows parking. Because parking is so integral into commercial projects.
Isn't it funny? You think, well, real quick, if I interrupt you, I mean, you would never think that, but it's the reality of it.
It's the truth. Form follows parking. Because that's how our society is. We're all drivers and we need to put those vehicles somewhere. So especially for commercial buildings. So working with a commercial client, it's always around parking and traffic flow. But also, again, beautification from the street. When you drive by and you see a beautifully landscaped business with beautiful signage and an attractive parking lot, that pulls you in, right? So much better than just bad strip mall. Nobody likes that. Well, we did a phenomenal project, Wiseman and Gale. It's in Old Town Scottsdale. They had their building's on a corner lot, and we transformed their parking lot into a parking garden. It's permeable, water pours through. You can tell by the pavers where you're supposed to park, and those pavers grab the water. Where there's not parking, there's fabulous rescued ironwoods. They've got boojum trees. It's a mini botanical garden. And it pulls people in. I've been in Old Town. I've seen people taking pictures of the garden, and it's a business parking lot. I mean, can you imagine? And people are going there to take pictures of your business. That's advertising. Yeah. To me, that is commercial money well spent. And I think that, going back to the original question, what's the difference? I think on the commercial side, they tend to not want to spend a lot of money because they just want to put it in a parking lot. I think on the residential side, they want their dream because this is where they're going to live and it's the most important part of their life. So that's the difference. We try and give them that fabulous parking lot within their budget and making it as ecological as it can be.
Just from a user experience, right? I totally agree on how the curb appeal and how things look. But one thing, when you mention, maybe some of these strip malls, or maybe I don't want to throw Walmart under the bus, but it's happened to me. There's, one thing that drives me nuts is like, let's say, you always have these like little curb areas where they'll put, trees and plants and stuff. And there's a parking space right next to it. So you park, you're trying to open your door, driver door, kids' doors, get kids out. And you're standing in the plant bed, right? There's trees there. They haven't cut the branches back. They're hitting your doors.
It goes back to the right plant in the right place, right? So if the function of the function of the parking lot is to park cars, we also want to supply shade. Who doesn't like to park in the shady spot in a parking lot?
Yeah.
Everybody. It's the most coveted spot in a parking lot. Wouldn't it be amazing to go in a parking lot where it was trees everywhere?
Yeah.
So we can do that. We might eliminate some spaces, but let's face it, parking is overdone already. Our zoning, for the most part in most cities, zoning is over-reliant on parking. They mandate that you put in these parking spaces, especially for these big box stores. It never is full. Have you ever seen a full parking lot? Rarely.
Yeah, never. Like
Always
never.
spots. And then
Yeah.
that's just black asphalt that just absorbs sun and adds to global warming and is
Yeah.
not permeable and is a petrochemical on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not working to eliminate that and put trees in these parking lots where we can park under? And we know how to do it. We can do wide systems. They can have curb cuts where the water from the parking lot waters the trees. There's some great botanical gardens that have done parking gardens. We've done, like I said, one locally at Wiseman and Gale. But I completely agree with you. Like, let's plant trees so we can park under them, and then let's make sure that it's the right tree for the right place, so we can also open our doors and get out.
You know, speaking of that, when you're speaking about planting the right trees, you know, it made me think, you know, in Arizona, something that's often overlooked is the irrigation side, right? And the reason being is we get microbursts, these big storms, these monsoons. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is, you know, some of these plants and trees need to be watered maybe once a week for a long time. So then that way the roots go deep down. So when the wind blows, they're going to be stationary. And if you're watering every day, the deep roots aren't going down, wind comes, bam, knocks it over.
There's been a lot of research recently, within the last 5 years, I think, on our how we irrigate plants. Misters versus drip versus all of this other versus other technology. We try and use plants that are going to be water saving anyway. Yes, they might need initial water while they're established, but ideally we don't want them watered over their lifetime. We try not to put in things that constantly need water. So we look at that first. Secondly, we look at really smart irrigation, and whether that's, not using drip anymore, or, whatever is appropriate to that landscape. Again, keep in mind, are we talking about coastal Virginia? Are we talking about California? Are we talking about North Dakota? And what are the needs of the plant? But if we're just talking about general Phoenix or desert area, yeah, things that need to be watered to get established and then don't need water, that's ideal.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, this kind of goes back to when you're speaking about the maintenance side. You know, most people are like, mow, blow, and go. You kind of have those, but you really need, from an integration and service side, people to understand, how to prune, the product that's out there, how to keep the irrigation right,
other things.
Change timers based on season.
The worst when we go in and see a landscape that we've done or somebody else has done, and then we go in and some land scraper, I call it, a land scraper goes in and just like whacked everything back, or it's just, sometimes it takes years for that plant to recover from someone's bad idea. I had, again, at my own home, I asked them not to cut anything. I came back, everything was cut into a circle one day. Everything was a ball, no matter what plant it was, no matter what it naturally looked like, because that was their idea of an aesthetic, and that's what they thought it should be. And that goes to long-term maintenance again. Some of these plants, if you cut it, it's going to take years for it to look the way nature intended it to look. We want to work with nature, not fight nature, right? It's easier. Wouldn't you rather put a landscape in that's easy to maintain and easy to take care of and beautiful to look at? I think that's all of our dreams. I think that's also, you can say that about a home. We want homes that are low maintenance and easy to take care of and beautiful. Who wants high maintenance? Nobody. We're high maintenance enough.
Yeah, we are. Trust me, we are. And I think the maintenance is a really good point, because you do want to put something in that'll be maintained and not butchered over time, right? And then also the clients who are I mean, the reality is a lot of the clients we work with, they may be here part of the season, part time, and they don't need a ton of work. They don't want to be outside every Saturday, doing maintenance.
No, or supervising somebody who's maintenance.
Yeah, right.
That's the other thing, they don't have time to do that either. So we also recommend all of our projects. We've got a great short list of landscapers who we love to work with, who do great work, who honor our work, and we'll happily recommend them to clients.
And I want to come back to that kind of operation at the green room, and maybe this kind of leads into that kind of, your firm, Michael. But, one thing that's really tough for clients is being the visual side of it, right? You and I do this for a living. I could look from the top of a 2D design.
Oh yeah, you get it.
Yeah, I get it. Like, I can have a good visual, but clients have a hard time saying, okay, if I'm standing street level looking at this,
I don't get it.
how are you integrating 3D technology, BIM modeling, so that they can really visualize what they're getting to make sure, hey, this is what I want?
We've got a fantastic staff person. She's actually an architect by training. She's from South Korea. We're actually sponsoring her green card, and she can create it to show the client. We can show the client in real time, 3D, what it's going to look like. Again, depending on the project scale and scope, we don't do it for everybody. It's based on, is this something you need to see? But I will remind the staff here, like, hey, keep in mind, people can't always look down and understand from plan view. A plan view to real view brain is unique, and not everybody has that. So we need to think like clients too, especially when we're presenting the design. We do a lot of concept boards. We do a lot of mood boards. We call them character imagery. They get a sense of it, but we certainly will do 3D rendering for clients, certainly our larger projects, without a doubt.
So going back to the operation, staff-wise, maybe some of the different positions. You mentioned you have someone who's an architect that can bring in that element. You mentioned that you have, are you guys installing? Are you guys, maintaining? Are you?
Yeah, we are just landscape architecture, so we are just design. We will oversee construction. We'll do construction administration, and we will recommend landscape firms that can maintain landscapes after we're gone. But yeah, we are just architecture. We don't build and we don't maintain.
Yeah, and I think what's important for the listener to understand is what that means is, one of the benefits is we're bringing you in early, Michael. You're working with myself and the architect and the designer. We're integrating the entire design. We have essentially, just like our architect is giving us a set of construction drawings and our designer is, you're doing the same thing, which now allows us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We do CDs, we do all of it. So when you hire us, you get schematic, design development, all the way to CDs. We can hand it to you and say, build it, you do it. You don't have to use who we recommend. You can do whoever you want. And I think that's important. I think the other thing that people forget, especially clients don't understand, is, that's also why our fees are a little higher than somebody who does design build. Because for us, the design is paramount, right? Design build, yeah, they might do it cheaper on the design side because they know they're going to make it up on the build and maintenance side. That's how they make their bread and butter, is build and maintenance. We don't have that bread and butter. So my bread and butter is design. And typical design fee for us is about 20% of the construction budget. It's a little on the high end, but we tend to think of ourselves as a higher end firm. And about 20% of your landscape budget should go towards design. And it's an easy, so if I have a client call, and just say small, little yard, 50,000, her budget's 50 to 100,000. So happy to come take a look. And again, keep in mind about 20% of that will go towards design. So if you're comfortable at $100,000 budget, spending about 20,000 on us and leaving 80 for construction, I think it's also a great way for you to vet potential clients, because when we go out, we do a site visit for no charge. I joke, Brad, I'll go to the opening of an envelope. I'll go to anything. And I'm happy to go to clients' homes. I love to meet people. I love to talk to people. I love to see their yards. I love to hear about their lives, pet their dogs, talk about their kids. But we want the understanding too that, you're not going to get, your dream yard, swimming pool, outdoor kitchen, all of that for $50,000. It's just not realistic.
How do you, business development, where are you finding new clients?
That's my job. So if you have any, I would love to know. Mostly referrals. Mostly referrals either through previous clients, architects, builders, or Instagram. We get a lot off of Instagram. We're working with an amazing young architect out of Las Vegas. We are working with him on the first living building ever to be built in Nevada. It's a private home. Living building is the highest level of green building certification, higher than LEED Platinum. The building has to make more energy than it uses. The building has to keep all of its wastewater on site. You can't send anything out to the sewage system. So the landscape plays a functional part of that process. He found us through Instagram.
That's amazing.
He said, I can't find anyone here in the Vegas market that can do this. I'm really struggling. This is very complicated. Is this something you guys would like to look at? And I think we're now on to our fourth project with this architect and looking to expand into the Vegas market. So yeah, business development, you never know who you're talking to either. I always say that. You never know who a potential client might be. And then we do the traditional things, open house studios. I go to all the events, I see you with them too.
Yep.
You have to stay in touch with the design community. And it's been such a welcoming community for me. The green room's been around for, Charlie Ray started this 20 years ago. I've only been here since January as Charlie's CEO. But I really like getting out there to meet people. So I think that's important too.
So what enticed you to join the firm?
Oh, wow. Great question. I was a longtime nonprofit CEO. I ran the LA County Arboretum and Botanic Garden for a little while. For a long time, I ran the down in Norfolk, Virginia, the Botanical Garden there for almost a decade. Previous to that, I was in New England running 2 different historic house museums. I got tired of the nonprofit rat race. So many visitors, members, donors, boards, committees. Just, you've got to keep so many constituencies happy all the time. I kind of got burned out, and I had hired Charlie in the green room to do a 26,000 square foot conservatory that we were building at the Norfolk Botanical Garden. Stayed friends with Charlie and people here at the firm. And, I was sitting in my car in Los Angeles crying to Charlie how much I hated my life and I can't do this anymore. And he's like, well, let's figure out how you can come work here, and as a joke. And we talked about it, and Charlie's saying, hey, I've been doing this for 2 decades and I still want to do design, but I really don't want to run a business anymore and I want to travel. And he's doing a huge pro bono project down in Tucson called Oasis for the Census. It's going to be this garden for low-income kids in South Tucson. He wanted to focus time on that. So he said, hey, would you want to come out to Phoenix and be my CEO and work also on business development? And I love the desert, and I love Charlie, and I love this firm, and I love what it does. And I thought it would be neat to be in the design world. I've been a client for so long, and I've appreciated art and design for so much of my career. So to now be working with the people who do it is an honor. The people that I talk to and meet with are true artists. So it's really, and then the patrons, I say that all the time. Thank you, patrons. Thank you, clients, for hiring us. Thank you, Medici's, for paying Michelangelo. If the wealthy weren't hiring us to create our art, we would have no art. And that goes
Right.
that goes back through history. So really, thank you, patrons. And patrons today are our clients. That's who our patrons are.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's an experience that reminded me. So, I was fortunate to work on the Omni Mauna Lucia in Paradise Valley on Lincoln and
Oh,
Tatum.
wow. Nice.
That's where I started my career, and I moved to Phoenix. And I remember, again, very naive, keep in mind, this is 2005, 6. So, economy's booming, everything's going gangbuster, right? This is
Yeah.
pre-housing recession. But the reason I'm bringing it up, I remember we had just kicked off the Mauna Lucia construction. And I remember his name was Rick Carpinelli, and he was kind of the VP running the development, and he gave a toast at one of the events as we were kicking off, thanking all the people that put in the time to make this development happen. And I remember thinking about that and not really understanding what that meant at the time. Like, I really didn't. I was, 25 years old. And now to understand what goes into a $300 million project, and the vision and the coordination, the amount of work for suppliers and architects and landscape architects and us as the
Right.
builder, the amount of people that call it fed and could create a livelihood. To your point, something that I don't think we speak about enough, and I know I'm speaking a little long-winded here, Michael, but I remember posting this incredible house, and occasionally you get someone that, eat the rich kind of thing. And I'm like, do you understand the thousands of people that have work? This client, yeah, they could go buy a jet. They could just travel the world and stay at nice hotels, but they're actually developing something. And I have thousands of people
Correct.
that work.
Yeah.
And it's you're an artist.
I've always said that, because I've worked at nonprofits for so long, which were supported by members and donors and visitors. And if we didn't have people to pay for these things, we wouldn't have a lot of beautiful things. And they're
Right.
beautiful things that everybody can enjoy, right? They're not just necessarily a private estate that someone will never see. The tradespeople that we hire,
Right.
electricians, plumbers, landscapers, engineers, fabricators. That's just me hiring those for
Septic. It just keeps going. Yeah.
Exactly. And these are all working, like my dad, working class, blue collar people who fed their families, put their kids through school. I was the first kid in my family to go to college. Like my dad grew up in a 3-story tenement building in Central Falls, Rhode Island. Like, I get it. I understand that people who develop projects and who put up money feed a lot of us. And always been grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, my dad was an electrician, blue collar. He worked for the same company, union electrician in San Diego for 35 years. And
Yeah, my dad was union telephone worker, linesman, put up
yeah,
telephone lines, and then couldn't climb anymore or something, or didn't want to climb, and ended up working in the back of the house when they switched to fiber optics. So he ripped out all the old wires and he put in the new fiber optic cables. He spent his whole career
yep.
doing that.
Yeah, I did a little bit of that interning, you know, fiber optics and, you know, putting on
Only,
the,
I'm sure you pulled wire with your dad.
I
Although if
did.
he was union, you probably weren't allowed on the job site.
No, I wasn't. So my grandfather retired from the Navy and started. He had 6 boys, and they're all electricians. And he started a company. So my dad, I never worked with him, but I worked with his twin brother and my other uncle at the
How
family
cool.
firm doing residential and commercial. But I do remember with my dad. See, it's a little different now, but back then he would, to your point, you know, he would go change a lot of the switch gear, you know, in the hospitals and a lot of union work, and he'd bring home the extra wire. And I remember over the summer, I don't know anyone that's done this, but we would strip, you know, the coating off of the wires
Take
to the
strippers,
copper.
yeah, and get it to the copper wire.
And go
Yeah.
recycle it. And so all summer I'd be out there 8, 10 hours a day, stripping wire,
That's
and get these
crazy.
buckets of copper. I know. And then my mom would take me to the recycle plant with my dad, you know, on a Saturday, and then I'd get like $130 base stock. And
That's
it was like
that
the
was good
biggest deal
money
for me, you know?
back then. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Being 12 years old, that was a lot of
And you
money, a lot of hard
recycle.
work. Yeah, I cut
And
my hands a lot. My brother and I would, you know, my brother pole vaulted and he sliced his hand doing it, but you know, it's good memories, you
that's so funny.
know. So what keeps you up at night?
Um, Not a lot. I think I've learned that, one day at a time. All of these silly sayings that I used to hear as a kid thought were stupid. Now I completely understand why we say them. One day at a time. This too shall pass.
Yeah, right.
I live in gratitude, so I'm a very grateful person. Um,
You're a very happy person. You could tell you're grateful. Yeah.
like I've also, well, laughing on the outside, crying on the inside. Um, I've also learned I'm tired of looking back and wondering why I wasn't happy back then, or projecting happiness into the future. Oh, if I get this project or redo this, or I find that one, or buy this, I'll be happy. And I miss all the happiness of the present because I'm too focused on the past or the future. And all we have is today. So I really try and stay grounded in gratitude, and I stay grounded in today. What keeps me up at night? My dog barking. Yeah, I'm worried about the environment and I'm worried about the future. And, I know you have kids, and what's the planet going to look like when
Right.
they're ready to have kids? That I, as an environmentalist and as somebody who's worked in plants and horticulture, public horticulture, pretty much my whole career, I think that's my biggest concern. Have we missed the boat? Is it too late? I hope not. So that's why I encourage people to plant trees. You plant a tree for the next generation. You don't plant it for yourself. So if you have a kid, go plant a tree this weekend.
Hmm. I love that. I love the giving back element. What do you do for fun?
The gym keeps me motivated, healthy, and mentally clear. Swimming, I love the water. I grew up on the Rhode Island coast, so
Hmm.
opposite coast from you, but I still was in my pool this weekend, jumping in and out. It's freezing. I don't understand the desert, why the water gets so cold so fast. Somebody explain that to me. And no one has heated pools out here. Yeah, couldn't find a house to rent that had a heated pool. But you also realize you don't have a lot of gas out here either. You don't have a lot of
Right.
natural gas infrastructure because there's no
Right.
gas in the desert. So that
Right.
was another thing. But yeah, I do that. Love to travel. Big skier. That's about
Yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, those are great hobbies. I mean, travel, skiing, you know, I'm with you. I love the water. I mean, the gas element's really important because, yeah, if you want to have, you know, a good hot tub, yeah, you better have gas because electric's not going to do it. So,
No, or you need, yeah. So swimming in my freezing pool, skiing, travel. Love Hawaii. I love that I'm now on the West Coast and I can get to Hawaii much faster and cheaper. It's a great place for me. And plants, I'm going to go plant shopping this weekend. So can't get away from that.
so what advice would you give to your younger self, or maybe the best advice someone gave you?
Oh, wow. I've had great bosses over the years.
Yeah, or maybe even a good mentor.
God. I think I would have told myself in the past, don't sweat the small stuff, and that this too shall pass. That I took everything so serious and everything was an issue. And when you're young, you see everything in black and white. And I think the older you get, you really realize everything's kind of gray. There really is no black and white. It's kind of everything is, shades of gray. And I think if you just kind of roll with the punches that way, you'll probably be happier and stress free. Yeah, not that I have any regrets, but I definitely would tell myself in the past, relax, kid. It'll be all right. You'll be fine.
And you did say that as well. I mean, in fairness, just a minute ago, I think it took me a little too long to learn that same thing is that, sometimes you're so stressed at a certain point of life or, even as a kid, once I'm 16, I'm driving, I'm going to be happy. Once I get out of high school, I'll be happy. I mean, you're always kind of
the next thing. It. And I miss
instead of just enjoying it like it's passing you by.
Yep, we miss all the happiness of the present because today is all we have. Yesterday's gone. Can't send happiness there. And tomorrow is not promised to anybody. So let's focus on today. Let's plant trees today. Let's reforest the earth today. Let's enjoy nature today. Let's hug somebody today. Let's be nice to somebody today. That's what I work on. And I'm from south of Boston. So for me to be nice to anybody,
that's a big deal.
Hard. It's wicked, wicked hard. So I'll tell you that.
Well, Michael, you've been incredible. I mean, just the passion, the knowledge, you brought so much value to the audience today. For those listening, how can they find more about you in the Green Room?
So the Green Room, tgrla.com, or just, Google us. Reach out to me as well, Michael at tgrla.com. Definitely follow our Instagram. We've got beautiful photos there. Again, not done by any professional. It's all done by us in-house. Mm-hmm. And feel free to come to the studio. We're having November 8th. Is that a Saturday? Yeah, Saturday, November 8th. We're doing an open house 11 to 1. Anybody can come by. We're in a gorgeous building that Al Beadle designed. In fact, I'm sitting at Al Beadle's desk.
That's amazing.
He designed this to be his own studio. It opened in 1978. It's an amazing structure. Lisa Setti Gallery across the way is the sister building to this building. Beadle designed both at the same time. So they can come here too on November 8th. Or if they're in the industry, reach out because we love to collaborate. And I love to meet people. So.
Well, Michael, you're incredible. Thanks for making time today. And
appreciate the friendship. All right. And I'll see you at the opening of an envelope very soon.
We will very soon.
All right, man. Thanks so much.